𝐕𝐢𝐻𝐿evante, and I am here to support, uplift, inspire, and hopefully empower you to be the best version of you were meant to be, that you came here in this glorious experience as a human. And even if you're in the thick of things, even if you're feeling like, ugh, because I know a lot of people are feeling it, and it's collective. We are not alone. We are in this together, as cliche as that sounds, and crazy to repeat things that cast a spell, because we have to be selective with the languaging we use. Because words have power, words have meaning, words carry energy. And that is the key. The frequency, the currency of our thoughts. As we ride the waves, the thinking mind, we can easily get hijacked from external influences. And that's when we need to be very, very tuned in to our internal truth. The only way you can acknowledge and recognize and notice an external influence, and when it has tripped you up, caught you off guard, is that you acknowledge and recognize you have an inner awareness of your inner dialogue, as opposed to just, going with the flow, just whatever. Because if we are unconsciously driven by our old programs, we will continue to get the same thing that we've always gotten. That's how that works. Doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result, that is the definition of crazy. Isn't that what they say? So I am over here with this beautiful sunshine from outside. I'm taking advantage of the weather. And then I'm going to go take a walk after this. But I essentially wanted to tune in, tap in with you, because we have this rumbling, the collective. We're in between eclipses. We're about to have a major lunar eclipse, full moon in Scorpio, the underworld. We are now Pluto retrograde, Mercury retrograde. Like, this is an internal workings. This is the Pluto, the underworld, going within and digging deep. And I usually like to say bulldozer deep, because I don't just go surface level deep. I go as deep as I can. And it may be uncomfortable for a period, but usually the fruits of my labor become the treasure. Turning my trash into my treasure. That's alchemizing. It's taking the energy and harnessing it as your fuel, not to lash out, but to replenish, to renew, reclaim your power. When we lash out, we lose our power. We give it away. And that's why we feel so depleted, so drained, so exhausted, that we have, the container has been spoiled. It could actually be likened to, okay, I'm going to get a little bit sexual on you, but orgasm. Can you contain, as you are coming to the climax, can you actually contain it and maintain it to the point where it sustains you and you can ride the wave, as opposed to just letting it all over the place? Because any form of creation is very much like sex. The union, the divine union, doesn't have to be with another partner, but essentially, and I'm not talking about masturbation, people, please, come on, keep the focus. It's really about harnessing and riding the wave with consistency, the Kundalini rising, the Phoenix rising, alchemizing, taking the energy and harnessing it. Alchemizing it is turning it into your fuel, rather than just vomiting out on others. And that's the old way. Like, right now what people are feeling is betrayed. They're grieving the trust that really they gave to another. We'll just say in the sense of like to Big Brother, to good, government, whatever you want to call it. The idea that they're supposed to take care of us. This codependent, toxic relationship we've been in for a very, very long time. So the collective is essentially going through this period of, I've had enough. I've been deceived, I've been lied to, taken advantage of, basically right up the butt. And so we want to believe the best in people. And the irony is that they've weaponized us against one another. If you catch yourself giving your power away, lashing out to another, what that really is, it's actually an internal flagellation just expressed externally. Because the things we see in another really exist within us, whether we want to admit that or own that or not, but it will own us if we don't claim it. So the real way to win at the game of life, because it is a game, and we are all major players in this, small parts, large roles, it doesn't matter. You're here for a reason. You didn't just come here to sit back and, free ride or hang out or survive. We're not here to survive, we're here to thrive. That's the biggest travesty, biggest lie set upon humanity, is that you need to pay to live on this planet. You need to pay to be alive. Sit with that for a second. Really? Wow. That's like, kids know this. Kids are like asking questions out of curiosity. Things we used to ask when we were kids. I know for myself, my childlike self was always like, why? I don't understand. Can you please be more clear on this? Because there is no clarity in the absurdity. There's no clarity in the incongruency. And again, my values are all about integrity, authenticity, transparency. And I believe that this is a core for many, and they may not even realize it. So you realize that whether you were raised with religion or not, there's been a huge underlying current with humanity. That you were born of original sin and you're constantly proving yourself to feel worthy of something. That why do I do what I do unless I get something in return to validate who I am and what I am, as opposed to acknowledging that you exist, and that's the gift. So this idea of humanity being turned against itself is what is in the collective right now. But some people have to get really angry to make and affect change. Again, Power versus Force by David R. Hawkins. Anger shows you care. If you didn't get angry, it would mean that you don't care, that it doesn't affect you. Hi, Shakti. Hi, Mish. So sometimes you need to be poked and provoked to show that you care, because the only way change is going to happen is if it matters to you, if it becomes a priority, if it affects you. Nobody's going to do anything until they feel threatened. And until it affects you and threatens you, you'll just continue to do what you do. But I don't think anybody out there feels quite as confident in their lives as they may have once felt. Think about that. That we are in a period, everybody's on edge. I was having a conversation, and this was the root of this, that when I go for a walk, and for the past couple years, the bicyclists on the walking path, the sidewalk, has become a little bit overridden by bicyclists that are a little aggressive. Not all of them. You cannot generalize. Please don't ever generalize. But it's created this energy of us versus them. It's like I'm walking. There are several signs that say wheels yield to heels, meaning the bicyclists need to yield to the pedestrians. Otherwise, they are just as much allowed to pedal on the street. This is not a bike path. It's a sidewalk. And there is a bike path within the perimeter, the area that we are in. And I catch myself from time to time feeling like confrontational, like, ugh. Because when I used to walk Buddy, there were times it was me with the dog on a leash. I'm not here my dog's going to go one way. I can't predict all the time. I can, but I can't. And if someone shows up and catches me off guard on a bicycle because they're going a lot faster than I am, so that means they see me first. I hope they see me first. They should be paying attention. That for them to give me an attitude or to be aggressive toward me, and they're not recognizing the rules of the road and the respect of you are allowed to ride the bike on the sidewalk as long as you're also being safe. And if you have to go around me, that's what you're supposed to do. Don't expect the pedestrian to get out of the way. It shouldn't be that way. In fact, that causes this angst. And this is where the conversation I was having earlier was around. And I said, you know, it's because of the collective anxiety, this angst, this on edge, that a lot of people are actually looking for confrontation and not realizing it. I'm speaking from personal experience. And what I mean by that is I used to be the person, because I am very confrontational, I don't like to skirt around issues. I like to handle things when they arise. I like to be very transparent. I like to have a conversation. Here's a problem. Can we discuss this now? Let's not let it fester and hang out, right? I like to be like, let's get this clear. Let's clear the air. Otherwise, it just creates an elongation of an anxiety or a tension between two individuals or more, right? So I know myself. And I can be really fine-tuned and fixated on something. My head will ruminate, my mind will let it go, let it percolate. The longer it lingers, the more it festers. Right? Toxicity, poison. It essentially, that's what cancer is. The longer you ruminate on something that is bothering you, as opposed to handling it and clearing it, the more it actually weakens your immune system, your effectiveness in the world, your ability to be open-hearted, because you become closed-hearted the moment you start getting caught up in this cycle. So with this bicycle path thing versus the sidewalk, I've caught myself a few times like, okay, give me a problem. I have no problem calling out. And there are people that get really aggressive, but you get what you're looking for. And I get caught off guard from time to time. Someone sneaks up behind me, like I don't hear them coming. If I'm listening to a podcast, just enjoying the nature and walk and looking around, because that's what I like to be, is free to enjoy the pleasantries of my home, my backyard. If I have to be constantly on guard, that's like a trauma response. And yeah, the bicyclists, if they're not paying attention, they can end up having their own accident. So it's really comes back to humans being good humans, that we should be able to look out for one another. I'm accommodating when I can be accommodating, but I also understand that, you know, I can't always see with the eyes behind my head all the time. And so I do notice that the collective has a chip on its shoulder right now. And so everyone has this, I'm on edge. Give me a reason to have an argument, to confront you. But it's not about you. It's not about me. What it is a deeper seated issue. That people are sick of being lied to, deceived. They've believed for so long. And I say this for myself too, because obviously, if you saw my last video, I'm still working through my stuff. And I can only say that I feel much lighter, more at peace of letting go than I was a week ago. And so when I find compassion for myself, I start to see where I need to have compassion around me. That if I was stressing out, and if you read my last post around, it's very important to recognize your own inner thoughts, or if they're even yours, because a lot of times we don't even know. That doesn't belong to me. Here I am getting negative about people around me because I don't want to deal with the stuff that's going on within me. That's essentially what happens. When you're on edge, when you are pushed to your limit, you actually look your inner child that feels neglected because you're not tending within. You're going without. And that energy will manifest externally. meaning you will draw in the confrontation, the altercation, because in some unconscious way, you're being driven to address what is going on within you. You're literally being guided by your inner child to resolve this mess once and for all. And if you're even conscious around it, to see that your inner child just needs you to tend butterflies. Exactly. The neglect we have for ourselves gets mirrored outside of us too. When we feel neglected by others, it's because we've done it to ourselves. And so we've given others permission to do that to us as well. But this on edge is just looking for a reason to take it out on someone, instead of alchemizing that energy and using that fuel to harness it and focus it into a passion, to transmute it, as opposed to letting it self implode. Because that's what happens. If you don't know how to harness energy, for me, myself, over all the course of my life since I was a little girl, I've known movement is medicine for me. I know get my ass in the gym. I used to be a runner because running was my moving meditation. I know that if I can get out and move my body, then I can shake out whatever it is that is tense in my mind. And typically what happens for me is as I'm walking, I'm thinking and processing and just ruminating, but reflecting, alchemizing, harnessing that, okay, why is this thought coming up? What is this trying to reveal about myself to myself? It's always an opportunity to deepen your relationship to self. Because when you deepen your relationship to yourself, you're going to do that for others as well. Because it's a boomerang effect. Humans in unity. We're meant to be together. You can try to hide out all you want, but that ain't going to help anybody. There's always going to be more work to do. And you can try to, oh, I'm just going to, whatever. You're going to hide out. It will seek you out. Because the internal stuff, and I will say that consciously doing the work doesn't make it any easier than having to go into altercations either. They're equally challenging for the mind to wrap itself around. But depending on whether you have someone who's an accountability buddy or you can be accountable to yourself, it's not as easy for most people. You usually do need someone to bounce off of. You usually do need a mentor, a coach. Because if you don't have someone who can see through your own BS, who else will do it for you? So the challenges that we're facing in the world today, the deception, the reflection of for the past few years, people are over being told what to do and to not ask questions. I come from a military background. You know, I saw that firsthand inside the government. You know how crazy? They literally pit you against one another. And it's this toxic leadership. The toxic leadership trickles down. It doesn't go up. If you're in a toxic work environment, that's because you have a toxic leadership environment. Because healthy environments have a healthy group of people working to support one another. And that's what really needs to be fostered right now. And so this is a time to open your heart even more, to be more compassionate toward yourself first, and then to radiate that out. Like open your arms wide. Because again, power stance, superpower, an open heart is stronger than a closed one. A closed heart is weak. It weakens your immune system. It weakens your heart coherence. It weakens you on all levels. Your heart is meant to be burst wide open, show them what you got, and give others permission to do the same. An open heart will draw in more open hearts. Nobody ever lost by having an open heart. There may have been challenges or bumps around the road, along the road, along, you know, the game of life. But anger is at the root of all dis-ease. It's the first step in acknowledging you care, but you're not meant to live there. So if you find yourself like in that festering anger space, the best thing you can do is to harness that energy. Either give it back to the earth, do something like shake it out, move. These are movement practices. Anyone can do it. Literally shaking your body engages the lymphatic system, shakes it out. You got to get the toxins out. You got to get the lymphatic moving. You got to also get the blood pumping, the breath, prana. Hello. Right behind the heart is the space of the lungs. And the arms are an extension of the heart and the lungs. Oh, I love you, Valley. It's so good to see you. And to have you in your power and your presence, the essence of you, is the big heart opening. That's why I say that's where your power resides. That's being in the present. And it's a conscious awareness and a learning to discern and not allowing the red flags to get dismissed. What you see, what you perceive, you have to own in yourself first. If you go back through some of my videos, I distinctly point out, if you don't own your shit, it will own you. The only way to really see through the veil of all the influence and deception, the lies and the BS, is to go within and know thyself so thoroughly well, that you own all your crap, the good and the bad, the devil and the angel. Because that's all you too. You wouldn't spot it if you didn't have it. You spot it, you got it. This is a little bit of a joke on humanity that you cannot deny in another what resides within you. And what resides in you, you see it around you. Yeah. 3 fingers pointing back when you point a finger out. So this on edge collective, like people are ready to bite each other's heads off. But do you recognize this is basic psychology 101? This is the divide and conquer at play. In our own backyard, we are being weaponized against one another. It hurts my heart, genuinely. As a prior military person who's been in the government, who's worked around the most toxic environments, where I've been a target and I was the sacrificial lamb in a couple occurrences of my career. So I had to have that experience to see it full on and not deny it, the red flags and everything. And of course, at the time, I was very naive to the deception, the lies that were right in front of my eyes, right? We should not desensitize ourselves just because we want to fit in. That ends. That cycle's gone. We are not here to prove ourselves worthy. Happiness is our birthright. We are here to thrive. It's time to stop getting consumed by what it is we consume, by allowing it to penetrate and to rule over us by affecting us and triggering our old traumas. The only way we are going to see and affect change in the world is to own our shit, period. You are an adult now if you're watching this. You are not responsible for what happened to you when you were a child, and over the course of your life, many bad things may have happened. But you're still here. And if you want better, you got to do better. And that also means owning the shit you've done, because we all learn to manipulate in our lives. If we were manipulated, we learned to manipulate. If we bully, we learned how to bully because we've been bullied. Always remember, behavior is learned and it can be relearned. Don't buy into labels. Labels are limitations. All of the psychiatric stuff out there. Yeah, we all got a mental illness, but that's a label too. And the mental illness is that we're not owning our shit, that we're allowing others to dictate what it is that is about us that we're trying to live up to. So the truth is setting you free, and that is the beauty in owning your stuff so it doesn't own you. That when someone flies off the handle, we need to learn to have compassion, not take it personal, not make it personal. 9 times out of 10, they are looking for a trigger to validate how they feel within that they don't know how to transmute. They don't know how to alchemize the pain within them. This is the rising of the phoenix. The phoenix doesn't take it out on another person. It learns to take it and alchemize, to transmute that energy and place it in the direction of where you want to go. Don't get caught up on where you've been. I'm speaking from my personal experience. I don't want to have anger toward a situation where I don't have access to my stuff any longer because someone has claimed my stuff. It hurts my heart that I wasn't acknowledged in how I felt, more than anything. I'm sorry you felt that way, Lana. That's what would have made everything sting less. It wouldn't necessarily take it all away, but just a simple acknowledgement and seeing, because people want to be seen. They want to be heard. They want to be felt. They want to know that they are relevant, that they matter, and we all do, that we're all worthy. There's nothing to prove. So the edge that the collective is literally on edge, at the breaking point, looking, seeking for confrontation, the negative, trying to find an excuse to lash out because they don't know any other way to take that energy and make it work for them than against them. Because when we lash out, as when I started out speaking, what we put out there comes back at us too. But it's giving our power away. Because if you're not containing it, just like an orgasm, because that's a creation, you are always creating, and it's always coming from the root. The root chakra is all about safety, security, and feeling a part of this world. Like, this is you being here. Your being is rooted in the root chakra. So the idea that everything comes from the basic needs, which are the lower chakras, that we seek to feel important, the basic human needs, love, connection, certainty, uncertainty, contribution, and spiritual evolution, community. We've lost it. We've lost touch with one another. When you catch yourself arguing to get your point across, you've already given away your power. You've already fed into the lies and the deception, the influence of divide and conquer. Because, as I was saying, we've been weaponized against one another. Men against women, women against men, dating, this, that, and the other. Stop. How about acknowledging that anything out there that got you in that mess of arguing, they won. They got you. They fed off of your emotions, an old unhealed, unresolved trigger, past trauma within your relationships that didn't originate necessarily with the man that you wanted to date, but goes back to daddy issues, goes back to mommy issues. Like, it's an unresolved trauma. And they triggered you. And you went in to fight it off. Now you want validation and vindication. Now you feel justified because there's a study or there's a survey that people answered and said that women do this or men do that. It's like, you know what? Stop giving it your attention. Stop giving it the currency of your thoughts and paying into that pocket, because they want us divided. They've weaponized us against one another. That's the real war that's going on right now, is us against us, instead of acknowledging the orchestration of the puppet strings above us, pointing fingers, because they're the ones pointing the fingers, and people are playing into it. That's why people are on edge. They don't even realize because it's unconscious. They're still feeding it. I got caught up in this the other day. I love men. I have no problem with men, except for that when an unhealthy man out there is not trying to do better. And same with my girlfriends too. My girlfriends will call me out. I'll call them out. If I make a mistake, I have no problem with saying I was wrong. And some of the stuff I've been seeing lately, I'm like, oh, they're trying to trick me into getting engaged in this type of dialogue. Because on one post I saw, apparently there's this dating study out there. You may have even heard about it, where men are upset because they're paying for women's meals because women are wanting free food. And I'm thinking to myself, how disgusting does that sound? As a woman, I would never reduce myself to a meal, first off. I'm not going to waste my time with a man just for a free meal. So for me, that makes absolutely no sense. So I don't know what the study exactly is and how it was asked. But there's also just I see, because I'm a Libra rising, I'm all about weighing the sides. I'm like, that's a generalization. And I would never expect all women are like that. Now, I will say there are probably women out there that do, because they're coming from survival. But I also look at it from the perspective of, well, don't you men see that you've been saved? That in some cases, you paying for a meal, you found out that person wasn't meant for you. Like, there's an opportunity there to recognize you've been spared. Don't be bitching about it. There's still a silver lining, even if you don't like that you paid for the meal. Of course, I prefer to meet in person and find out if we have something worthy of continuing on to have a meal. Let's have a coffee first. Because most of these dating apps, people don't meet in person. So you're not really getting a full account or feel for the individual through these devices. And dating used to be that the man came up and asked for your number first, and then you would be like, do I feel it or I don't feel it? And yes or no. Yes, some of us women, we felt like, oh my gosh, I feel like I need to give him my number, but I don't, embarrassed or obliged, right? And that's the other thing. A lot of men will pay for a meal expecting something in return. Like, again, valuing the meal to having access to my body. That to me just, sorry, that does not compute in my book. On either account, because I want more. If I'm going out on a date with you, I'm going to put in an effort. I want more than just, let's have a meal. But I found, even in my dating just recently, that sometimes I'm going out on a meal thinking it's okay because we already met for coffee. And then the meal wasn't that good, and neither was the conversation. And I realized, wow, it seemed to start out all right. I didn't need a free meal. In fact, it was a cheap meal, and it was a crappy meal. And then the conversation was crappy too. So I was like, you get what you pay for. So, sometimes they think but this is also an excuse. And this is the part I would call out from the other perspective of the man. How many of those men are going to admit they're just upset they were rejected? So they feel like they're jilted because they paid for the meal, but they're mad because they were really rejected when they felt like they deserved something for paying for the meal, whatever that is in their mind. Because again, the only reason people get bitter is because they don't get what they want. They don't get their expectations met, because that bitterness comes from the wanting things to be different than they actually are. And as for women, yeah, there's a lot of women who probably go out for meals, but I know for myself, sometimes I think everything's okay, and then it turns into, well, there's something that just flagged and said this doesn't compete. It doesn't compute for me. And so some of us will be straight up and tell you. I will say that the last date I went on, neither one of us reached out to one another, and I'm pretty sure that's because we both knew. And that was okay too. I don't need an explanation. He doesn't need to, he probably doesn't need an explanation from me either. That's okay. Sometimes you don't need to speak about it later. But the whole dating culture, Wow, people have lost their sense of like humility, humanity, the roles of men and women, or whatever else is going on out there. I just know for me, it's men and women. I like men. I honor men. I'm not here to put them down. I'm not here to buy into the all men are pigs and this, that, and the other. I don't even talk about stuff like that. I don't talk down about men because that's not the spell I want to cast in the world. I see every man has an opportunity to show me their strength, their power, their healthiness. And you know, if they don't resonate with me, I'm not going to talk down about them. If they don't choose me, I'm not going to be like, oh, passive aggressive, because that's what that is. That's unhealthy. That's toxic. So when I heard all this stuff, and I actually engaged in one of the posts that I saw on Instagram, and I just said, this is propaganda. Can't you see how they're pitting us against one another? I had people actually going at me, telling me how I don't call out other women. And I was like, whoa, this is so not what I was saying. I believe in the healthy person, like healthy humans being good to other healthy humans, and also the bad ones too. We don't know what another person is going through. The idea, and yeah, there's this whole loyalty, I got to defend my brother and my sister, whatever. When it really boils down to it, like attracts like. If you attract someone who's out there for a free ride, you better check yourself and recognize where you're not communicating what you're trying to get out of the situation. And this is everything in life, not just a relationship with another person. I don't know how many dates I've been on in my past, in my life. I typically end up in really solid relationships. I've had some really wacky ones over the years that have kind of checked me and like, whoa, where did that come out of? But I do believe in the power of healing and owning our stuff. And that when I came back to the States in 2008, I saw patterns that I was living out that stemmed from what I witnessed in my own parents. Because they didn't know better. I didn't know better. I took on their story. And so over the years, I've been like, wow, I see how relationships and dynamics play out and how easy we can fall into what has been demonstrated, what has been emulated. When you see your parents, we think that's healthy. Whatever it is, even if it isn't, even if it is. What is familiar becomes the choice, not necessarily what is healthy and makes us feel safe or feel good about ourselves. If you don't feel that you deserve the best, you'll settle for less. And I've done that in my past. I'm a human. I have my moments. But I also know what I feel deserving of now. I have been celibate for over 5 years, and I'm very content with that. I don't need to pimp myself up. I don't like that. I dislike the idea that anybody should have to put their body out for sale or sell their soul for whatever. Like, this is not the world that was meant for us. And it's been flipped upside down because we've been weaponized in this whole race war, gender war, whatever war, us versus them, sports wars. People argue over the silliest things and don't even see how they've been influenced, how they've actually been manipulated into fighting with us, fighting against one another. Like, this is not the point of humanity. So while I was having that conversation, and I was like, wow, this is where we're at. That the collective is so much on edge and flipping out on one another because they don't see this. They don't see the manipulation, the psyop, the psychological operation, as we say in the military. A psyop is psychology and used to be weaponized. Psychological operations are weaponizing people against each other using the psychology of them. Meaning they know full well how to feed off your emotions through your 5 senses, how to trigger you to get you to turn on yourself and one another. This is basic psych 101, people. This is not new. It's been used time and time again through history, but yet we are here again repeating it because we are in survival mode, and people who are surviving don't have time to notice what's really going on because they're trying to get by day in, day out, and they're in the stress response, chronic stress, just trying to get by, not realizing that's not the way they're supposed to be living, not recognizing that is not their birthright, that we're so much more than this. We still can be trusting, but you have to trust thyself. And the only way to trust is to know thyself and own thyself and not deny the red flags or the inner knowing, the gnosis, the gut instinct. Ooh, I felt something was off. Trust it. Because ultimately, you know. It's like that little short that I made earlier. What did I say? I said, you must just be real. You might just be realizing this, but here's a friendly reminder to not dismiss it. Reclaim your gnosis and knowing. I share this message as much as it is for myself. As for you, you do know. You're just now remembering, so trust yourself. You do know that you know, so stop dismissing it and acting like you don't, because that makes you an easy pawn in their game and certainly an easy target to manipulate. Ignorance is not bliss. It just puts you in the ignoring your gut. So this really is a time for strong hearts. Open your arms wide, like make this a practice. And shine your head up like the sun, the heart, the courage, la cœur, Leo, lion. I'm speaking from the space of my heart. That we need to beam like the Care Bears. Remember the Care Bears? I wasn't a big Care Bear person. My sister was. But the Care Bears were all about beaming from their hearts. There's a message in everything. So you also have to recognize that we're all grieving the past few years of feeling like we've trusted where we shouldn't have trusted. But that distrust really comes from within. And the real anger ends up being turned within. We want to take it out on someone else, but the reality is we feel we betrayed and deceived ourselves. So even what's going on and playing out in the world around us, where we think that they got one over on me, they're wrong. See this? 3 fingers pointing back. It's time to own your role in it too. And I say this for myself. That when we blame and we shame and we want to convict, pointing a finger out, whether it's big brother, big daddy, whatever you want to call it, this is essentially saying, I gave over my power and I'm mad about it, so I will make you the villain, when in reality, and that's a victimhood mindset, by the way, I need to be the victor and reclaim my power and pull it back, call it back. That, yeah, I gave them an opportunity. I trusted them, usually against your own knowing that you should not have. This is the into me I see, the true inner knowing, the knowing that we have the power. We need to stop giving it out, whether it is lashing out, blame or shame. We don't need to play the game. Neutrality is the way to win this. Don't let it trigger you. Don't let it take you out of your peace. As silly as that sounds, and I know for years I was like, what? Did you not see? And I'd get angry. But that's because I cared too much about things that I was complaining about. Reset priorities. What is really important to you in this life? This is what all this eclipse energy is doing, is it's bringing to light the stuff you've been pushing down, what really matters to you most. Are you doing it or still talking about it? And I'm just saying this for myself too, because I am in the same boat. That everything I share comes from what I'm also experiencing or have experienced. Personal life experience is my biggest teacher. I can talk to you blue in the face, you know, that kind of deal. But the truth is I only want to speak from what I know because of what I experienced. my inner gnosis, my knowing, GNOWING, rather than just talking the talk. I walk what I have learned from all of it. Life has had its ups and downs and challenges. This past year, I have a whole new body because I took my implants out. I mean, I'm having to like deal with also body image sometimes. Like that's a wave I'm riding. The dating scene, a wave I'm riding. House renovation, a wave I'm riding. You know, like when you need somebody to show up and work and you just don't, you're having a challenge finding the right people, but that's probably because the universe has not sent them to you. I have to say that for myself because I know how my world works. I know that the universe slows me down because sometimes things just aren't the right time. So again, we want to tap into compassion for ourselves first. We didn't just get here. This was a cumulative thing. We, you know, when you're in a comfort zone, it's so easy. You know, all your needs are taken care of. You're able to pay for things. You're able to get access to things. But what if it was all gone tomorrow? What if? Have you looked at the possibilities of real life upheavals? Do you actually acknowledge how good you have it? Are you in gratitude? This is my point. The more we're grateful for what we have, the more it supports and brings back more of it to us, for us. So if we don't have gratitude, we're feeling entitled. We're not acknowledging the beauty in our life. And like I say, my mom, you know, we didn't always have the best, but she found a way to make the best with what she had. And that was the biggest teacher for me, to allow me to do the same for in my life. Like there've been times I still don't know how I did it. I had somebody living with me and I was the one paying and barely scraping by month to month off of a less than $1,000 disability check. And yet I made things work. So I don't believe that people don't have enough. It's just they don't know what they're doing with it that can best feed you. Yeah. Oh, I feel ya. I've been food bank stuff, donations. I feel ya. So instead of lashing out to others, and when someone lashes out at you, have compassion, send them love. They need it more than anything because that's how much the anger is burning within them. They haven't yet learned to alchemize and transmute and transform that. I was on food stamps for over a year, a couple years actually, so I feel you. And it's not easy. And they have a very low threshold. Like, you got to not be making any money. I don't know how people do it. Anyway, again, finding the gratitude in what you do have access to, the people in your life that support you, the communities, the spaces that you have access to. And if you don't have access, go out and find ways to get involved, because that's what's going to really change your world and your life. So again, I'm going to read over what I wrote earlier because this is so pivotal. This time that we're in, we don't want to be bitter, because the bitter is what eats us from the inside out. We got to be better. We got to not allow the weaponizing of one another against each other to take us out and take us down, because that's an implosion. It's time to expand, not implode. One of the things I wrote is ultimately what the collective is most in arms over, but many are really oblivious, is to the root of their own anger. Unfortunately, most have been pulled into the divide and conquer tactic that's been weaponized and turned inwardly against one another. Can we discuss this? Can you acknowledge this? How easy, how simple, how they actually tricked us into fighting with one another? There's no sense in nonsense. We need to tap into the compassion for ourselves so that when others around us are not doing well, we can energetically still love them whether in person or from afar, whatever it is you need, because sometimes you may not be able to be in their presence because you're not strong enough in your own. And that's discerning where you're at and not letting it take you out. Because if we don't own where we're at, we will get taken advantage around. So it began earlier that I was speaking about that whole situation with this confrontational thing. Like, the on edge is looking to be vindicated, validated. Give me a reason to lash out. Give me a reason to get angry, instead of just allowing it and being with it and seeing how there's an opportunity in it. It shows you care, but you need to direct that energy to alchemize it and use it as fuel toward your passions, your purpose. There's pain in it. So now you need to take the pain and alchemize it into your purpose. Because at the root of everything is love. We all desire it. It's what drives us, even fear. Even behind fear is love. And I spoke about that in the last couple videos. So we don't see that the root of our anger is really exacerbated by what's been happening in the past few years. Always doing the right thing, but never questioning it, is not the right thing. And in fact, always doing the right thing by authoritarians who've told you what to do without question. My military background. Do as you're told, not as I do, and don't ask any questions. God forbid you actually confront or ask questions to your authorities. Now, contrary to popular belief, in the military, there's a code called the UCMJ. And a lot of times you'd be surprised, the abusers of their authority can still be held accountable for giving direct orders and you turning around and questioning it because it is at life or death, or it's actually an abuse of authority. I've seen it. I dealt with it. So people are internally imploding unconsciously, just looking for an opportunity and an outlet for it. That's your inner child saying, I feel neglected, and you yourself are not addressing the inner child. So the inner child, again, calls in third parties, calls in somebody to work it out. And that's why it ends up showing up outside of you. Because when you don't go within and actually nurture your inner child will call it out. Your inner child will create the havoc in your life because it just wants to resolve it and get your attention. And sometimes it's at the expense of others. Call yourself out on that. Take time to be with yourself. A lot of times we're afraid, we don't want to be alone. You're not alone. There's an inner you too. And when it comes down to it, a lot of people know they've been deceived and lied to. But instead of channeling that anger into something constructive, like exercise or a passion project, many are ruminating in their minds and they're festering, making it worse. Oh yeah. In dialogues that just feed and expand it, making it worse because it's not even there, it's in here. And this mind, it can create some serious trauma on top of your trauma. We don't need science to tell us that movement is medicine. Just try it for yourself. Get out, move it out, shake it out, scream it out. Get your whole body into it. Something pisses you off, find yourself a safe space and curse at the top of your lungs and just whatever words, just let them all bleh. Allow yourself to have a bleh. Release. You'll feel so much better afterward. Trust me. Movement is medicine because it naturally, it fuels you. Chemically, it alters you. You get to create your own chemical cocktail. It boosts your immune system and improves your mood. Hello. There was something I was listening to earlier. I think I posted it on my Instagram. When you tension release, and this is something we do in Kundalini Yoga, we do it in Amrit and Yoga Nidra, that when you tense up the body and then release it, it actually relaxes you because you didn't know you were holding on to begin with. It releases all those wonderful hormones. Healing. You have everything you need right here. Stop going without. Stop looking outside of yourself. This is where it's at. You get results immediately from exercise, and you see the impact over time. You also see how others will be watching you. What are you doing? You look pretty good. I want some of that. Hey, people always ask me, what do you eat? Like, I'll have people stop me and go, and then when I tell them I'm a yoga teacher and I do what I do, they're like, oh, well, that makes sense. You can be a teacher and be unhealthy too. I've been in those spaces long enough. I look around and I'm like, okay. You see it, you know it. But when you have the integrity and the alignment, people notice that. And they would be the people that will approach you when they're willing and wanting to change themselves. They want some of that. So the more you radiate that out, the more you draw others to you, because that's what they want to feel too. It's not rocket science, and you don't need science to prove any of this. Just try it for yourself. Like, you're going to get instantaneous results, and it will build up your courage. It will build up your resilience, resistance. Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know what? You're not responsible for how others feel. Whether they envy you, they're jealous of you, they admire you. They're going to be all types of people. It's none of your business. Don't make it your business. Let them have that energy and do not let it penetrate you. I have had to resolve myself and say, I don't allow that in my field. There's a beautiful quote that I saw the other day, and I embellished upon it, so it's changed it. Out of sight, out of mind, out of aura. I also add to it, out of your bubble and inner circle. It's totally outside of your sphere of influence. Don't let it penetrate your peace. What other people think of you is none of your business, so don't make it your business. And don't buy into the gossip and the negative of talking about other people and how they are. I generalize and I share some things, and I'm not perfect. And there are times, like I said in my last post, where I caught myself that I was so deep in my pain, I was finding other people as an easy target for me to talk. Like what do they call it? Leukoplakia, like vomit of the, like, what the heck? And when I caught myself, I was like, this is not me. I am in such a negative space. I am so pained inside of myself. I am so much hurt that I'm actually seeking to hurt others. And people don't recognize that they do that. This is what happens. Hurt people hurt people. And even me as a healer, as someone who helps others heal to see and recognize their beauty, I have my times and I have to check myself. And sometimes I'm grateful that I have girlfriends, friends, real friends, that will check me as well. 9 times out of 10, I'm at a space now that I can check myself. I don't even need it. But when I get so sick of it in myself, that's when I know something's up. It's time to let that out. That's okay. I've heard it enough in my own self. We're flushing it. We've done enough of that. And it takes a very humble person to acknowledge their shit. I don't need to confess my sins. I'm just expressing so I don't suppress, and also to inspire others to recognize that if I can acknowledge that in myself, you may want to check yourself that maybe somehow that's happened in your life. Can you see at some point in your life where maybe you were doing the same thing, where you caught yourself putting another down because that was the only way you felt you could uplift yourself? That passive aggressivity is coming from a place of pain. When you don't feel good enough, you'll put someone else down, depending on how deep you are in your pain. You'll put someone else down in an attempt to bring yourself up. To heal that is to own it, to acknowledge it, and don't let it rule you and run you. That one's painful, but when you notice it, right? When you know better, you do better. When you know better, you have the opportunity to do better. It does not make you a bad person. It makes you an aware person. And awareness is key to unlocking your power over the frequency and the currency of your thoughts. This is why we do mindfulness practices, why we meditate, to know the inner workings of your own mind. Because when something unfamiliar pops in, you know it's unfamiliar because you're constantly watching what's happening. So you knowing your currency, your thoughts, your patterns, your programming, how your mind works, when you know it, then something unusual pops in, you can go, oh, that's not normal. That's not my frequency. Could be that something has influenced you from the external. Could be that something's trying to penetrate you. Not today, Satan. I don't allow that. Those do not belong here. Cast you away. But you have to own it. You have to claim it and release it. You don't have to keep it. You know, you don't have to feel shame and blame and all that stuff. No, we're past that. This is not where we live any longer. That was the old patriarch, the old religious indoctrination of shame, blame, point fingers. This one did it, that one did it. Nobody actually being accountable. This is us owning ourselves and not allowing the things around us to take us out of our peace. Now, this is a constant work in progress. It doesn't happen overnight. But the best way you can start is by breathing consciously. Getting in touch with your breath also gets you in touch with your mind. And when you get in touch with your mind, you can master it. You can master your life. It starts with mastering your breath, which brings you present to your mind, mastering your mind, which allows you to master your life, which you can master the domain of your life. So again, do you really need proof that exercise is helpful, that movement is medicine? Do you really need science to tell you? Try it for yourself. Look at those around you who do it. Don't you want some of that too? I know I do. That's why I do what I do. In order to be effective in the world, we have to be present and aware of our inner world. It's no other way. Gotta go in, people. And I like to say, we're going deep. We're going bulldozer deep because we don't play surface level games around here. If you really want to heal, you gotta feel, because then it's revealed. Then you can let it go. But you got to feel it to truly heal it. Yeah, and you know what? Cleaning the house is a form of exercise too, and sometimes shifting energy just by moving things, which today there's been a lot of movement around my house. We started pulling up a deck. I was like, I think we need to move the deck. I think it's time to take the deck out, because then I'm going to get a better vision of how I want things to look out there. And I go through my waves of, is this ever going to happen? Am I ever going to be done? Am I ever going to be able to move into my space? You know, it will happen because I got the vision, and because I've got the strength, the resilience, it's going to happen. But it's also a lot of other things going to happen. So we will be doing a body awareness workshop soon that will be on via Zoom, and I will teach you some of the things. I will share with you. I have a whole bunch of pamphlets and worksheets for you to also work with when we do it. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and enjoy my walk now. As you see, the sun has been setting and changing the shades across my face. And I didn't even take a sip. I'm so thirsty. Pardon me. Islander is one of my favorites. I'm so silly. So I am here to uplift the world by support and inspiring through my inspired living. I want to see everyone thriving. I want to see us supporting one another, because we are not meant to fight against one another. We're meant to stand together, to rise together. Humans in unity equals humanity. If we don't unite, we end up in the fight. Like, really look at the game that's being played in front of us. It's time for us to take back, to be no longer the pawns, but to be the king, the queens. Come on, people. We're better than this. We need to stop playing into all of this. And in all honesty, the next time someone wants to start arguing with you, reach into your heart and find the compassion and recognize how they bought into the lies, how they got hijacked to even argue, to defend something they have no need to defend with you. You can say, you know, you don't need to try to prove anything to me. You don't need to force me to believe the same thing you do, because that's the biggest reason for war, is people defending their beliefs and trying to impose them upon another person. When in reality, we're all supposed to have differing ideas. I mean, innovation doesn't come from just everyone agreeing. It comes from, watch this, I'm going to do this over here. Well, that's not going to work. I'm going to do this over there. It's creativity. It's art. Life is meant to be art. Everything is art, actually, because it comes from the heart. Anything extending from the arms is the heart and the lungs. So tap into your heart, because this is your superpower. And again, like the Care Bears, beam it out, baby, because that's how we're going to win this game. Neutrality. Yeah, hold my beer. That's cute. I don't even drink beer. Root beer, maybe. I like root beer. But this is the truth. Everything's going to work out bigger and better than you could ever imagine. Because you didn't come here to just survive. You came here to create the new earth. And remember that. I know that's why I'm here. I love you all. Big hugs and kisses. Remember to smash the like button. Remember to subscribe and check the notifications bell. Ding, 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 ding. Oh, birch beer from the twigs. Oh, I love that. Because you know what? The world needs more of you. I love you.